Welcome out to today's live stream, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going to be talking about human behavior. Human behavior is such an interesting and complicated concept as it does affect all of us as humans. Unless you're a pet or an animal watching this, then we need to get you into a circus because if you're watching a YouTube live stream, you figured out how to do it, we're going to make some money off you. Human behavior can be defined in many different ways, but the best example that I've found is the potential and express capacity of physical, mental, and social response to internal and external stimuli. Basically, it is how and why we react to certain things in everyday life. A lot of what we do and why we do what we do is going to be ingrained from when we are a kid. If we saw our parents eat food in a particular way, such as if you look in certain civilizations or certain cultures, sorry, where they would always sit on the floor. That is just a social norm. We sit on the floor. We don't use chairs. We sit on the floor. This is how we eat our food. If you do that all throughout your childhood years and your adolescent years, then as you get into adulthood, this is just such a normal way of doing things that you would likely start to just continue that. Same with the types of foods that you eat. If you have parents that ate McDonald's every single night and led an unhealthy lifestyle, you increase the likelihood that you are going to follow suit, which isn't overly great for long-term health, but this is just how behaviors occur. We're going to jump into a couple of different concepts and different ideas, just try to understand this a little more. As most people think that human behavior is about discipline, is about ingraining something in yourself to do it, even though you do or don't want to be able to do it. But most of what you do is driven by triggers, by emotions, by beliefs, and by repetition. If you don't understand the loops or the loops of behavior, you'll keep repeating patterns until you say you want to stop and then change. If we're looking in the health and fitness industry, that is someone living a relatively sedentary lifestyle. Let's say they wake up first thing in the morning, they grab an energy drink, they get showered, go to the office, sit down all day, come home, grab a microwave dinner, and binge Netflix for 4 hours at the end of the day. And they repeat that loop over and over again without being able to kind of catch yourself and go, this isn't the way I want to live anymore. That loop can sustain for years on end. And it's largely going to be relevant in today's society as there is more reason to sit on your ass and do fuck all because of the rise of social media. And social media isn't all negative, but it is a contributing factor to wanting to not do the things you know you need to do that will allow you to move forward in life, unless social media is going to be a part of that, which is why I'm shooting what I'm shooting today. So that it's not all doom and gloom, but there is certainly aspects of social media that can be quite destructive. But if we're looking at overall habit formation, essentially habits are formed in four different steps. I've been doing a little bit of work on just trying to simplify this as much as I possibly can. When habits are formed, we first and foremost need a trigger, whether that is an internal or an external stimuli. That external stimuli might be someone saying something to you in a conversation face to face. That could be something such as getting punched in the face. That could be something such as tripping and falling over. There's got to be some kind of trigger that we respond to, whether it is an internal trigger, it would be largely emotional. You say something to me, I feel a particular way, and then I'm going to respond or take action to that. After that trigger has commenced, we go into action. The action is how am I going to physically respond to this? And if we're looking at a simple situation, such as being attacked, and if someone comes to attack me and they punch me in the face, how am I going to respond to that? And the action might be I'm going to throw a punch back or I'm going to run away. From there, it becomes a reward. If I run away and I get away, I feel safe. I feel like that was the right thing to be able to do. And I'm not getting punched in the face anymore, which is great. Or I punch them back in the face and I win the fight. Great. Another reward of like, I won the battle. Or it could also go to the other end of the spectrum of like they could hit me in the face and knock me out, then that reward is then therefore negative. And a large part of creating any habit is going to be your investment, and your investment in time, in effort, or if it is part of your identity. If you are a healthy person, then that identity might be a case of like, I only consume whole foods, I drink lots of water, I get sunlight every day. And the time and effort that you put into that is preparing your meals and your foods. It is going to the gym, for example. And that creates this loop of being a healthy person. And that loop does reinforce itself. The core idea really is your brain is if you imagine it as a puppy, the reward equals repeat behavior. So if you teach your puppy to go use the bathroom and you give it a snack, that positive reward gives them a reason to repeat that behavior. If you, for example, your puppy poops on your brand new carpet and you give it a smack on the nose. I don't have pets, but I'm assuming that's something what you might be able to do is just give it a little tap on the nose. Then that might reinforce, okay, that's a behavior I don't want to repeat. But it is a loop of like, I don't poop out on the carpet, I go and poop elsewhere, which is hopefully outside. So the loop itself can be trained because people follow patterns. They follow patterns and they follow their own behaviors. Because most people don't lack discipline, they lack a behavioral system. You set goals, you get motivated, everything is all well and good. Then real life shows you up, punches you in the face, schedule gets messy, energy starts to dip, and so suddenly the plan starts to vanish. Most people see that as a personal weakness, but it's often not a character flaw. It means largely there is no structure to to creating a habit or trying to ingrain discipline. Because behavioral change works better when there is supported by focused repetition, knowing that, okay, if I want to get stronger, for example, I'm going to repeat the behavior of going to the gym, whether I feel like it or not. So every day, I'm going to set a timer for waking up at 5 a.m., knowing that the first thing in the morning I do, as soon as I wake up, I hit stop on the alarm, I get dressed, and then I go to the gym. If I use that and I go to the gym, I work out, I feel good, great. Now my behavior has been reinforced by feeling good. And eventually over time, I will become stronger and build muscle tissue. So the more that that is ingrained, we can start to really focus on creating a new pattern. Most people, as it relates to distractions away from behavior, think that distraction begins with a notification. Notification comes on your phone and you immediately have to go and answer it. But really often it begins with discomfort, with boredom, with uncertainty, anxiety, frustration, for example. You've not ingrained the behavior of being okay with, I don't have to answer that notification right now. I'm focused on what I'm doing. Let me sit with what I'm doing versus having the anxiety of like, oh, I need to answer that. What happens if it's super important? And oftentimes it's not. And people do get distracted with internal triggers, which really just map to emotional regulation. Can I regulate this feeling, this discomfort well enough for me to not answer that notification on my phone? Can I regulate it well enough to not be distracted by boredom, by awkwardness, by just general frustration, for example? Because before moving apps, which absolutely can work as a mitigating distraction tool, we need to identify the emotion that is preceding the behavior. Is it anger, anxiety, boredom, anger, frustration? And it's useful to be able to write that down and just monitor that. Keep an emotional journal, keep a feelings journal. How am I feeling towards this? And then what was the outcome? If I have reacted in a positive way, cool. Let's keep that in mind and let me ingrain that behavior. But if I acted in a negative way, for example, then I know I need to change that behavior. And it's only by writing it down, suppose as a journal, you have some real life data there. You can look back and go, you know what, I didn't like how I felt in that situation and how I acted. What was the emotion that I felt I was feeling? It doesn't have to be 100% correct. But if I can start to identify it, I can then start to change that. Because regardless if it's an app or not, if there's always an underlying fundamental of an emotional lack of emotional regulation, then you'll find another way to be distracted. It won't necessarily just be the app. You'll find a way to be able to become distracted. Something else that I found is quite useful is that when we're looking to change a behavior, one of the fastest ways to do it is to change your environment. There's a really famous story about one of the wars. I'm not a historical buff. One of the wars, and these particular soldiers were addicted to opium whilst they were away at whatever country that they were able to access opium was. And they'd become addicted. They'd come back. They had seen psychologists. They'd gone to therapy. And almost all of them, without fail, had overcome their addiction because of the environment, largely because of the environment, which shows that your environmental trigger is going to be a large aspect of developing human behavior. If you want to get fit and healthy and you are unhealthy and obese and you have a poor diet and you've got shitty sleeping patterns, for example, if you go and take yourself and you put yourself in an environment surrounded by people that do take care of their health, they're generally fit, healthy, well, or at least they care about it. If you put yourself in an environment where people like to be active, like to go for walks or go to the gym or even just get outside, you are more likely to start to adopt the behaviors of somebody that is going to be a healthy person. And this is what we call identity change. It's basically taking your current identity and is putting yourself into a different environment so that you can start to enact in a particular way or a different way. Ideally, this is leading to a positive human behavior. And the same goes for relationships, especially social relationships. You might have a group of friends, and there's certain friends that are your besties, your homies, you know, they take a bullet for you. And then you've got some people in that circle that might be pieces of shit. You might can't stand them, they can't stand you for whatever reason. But just by being around them, you start to act less of the person that you want to be and more of the people that you see in them. And oftentimes, when we start to see hate and project hate into other people, we start to act that way ourselves. So, all the human behavior and really controlling it in a positive way and creating positive loops, we can also do the exact same by creating negative ones. Now, nobody wants to be an asshole. Nobody wants to be a piece of shit, especially if they don't want to be told that they are. But if you are in an environment where your behavior has almost no choice to act that way, it becomes incredibly difficult not to. Not impossible, but really, really difficult. So, one of the best things that you can do is to change your environment as soon as you can and know what you want. Know what you want in terms of why am I changing my behavior? Who do I want to become by changing my behavior? It's only by being able to at least step into the shoes of the person that you want to become that you have a bit more of an idea of how would this person act? Why would this person behave in this particular way? Why should I act in that particular way? Well, if I keep acting the way that I am acting, I'm not taking any steps forward to changing my behavior. And if I do take a step forward into that person's shoes, then it's going to bode well for me because I'm going to start to act like that person. So when you look at up to somebody, someone that you idolize, or whether it's a athlete or a celebrity, you look at them and you start to think, I like something about them. I like the way that they conduct themselves. I like their lifestyle. I like what they've achieved. And you think, well, if I do things like them, I'm at least going to take some kind of similar steps in the right direction. So you start to behave like them. And if you behave like them long enough, you start to become like them, whether again, the positive or the negative. This is the interesting thing about human behaviors. As much as there is a positive side of a coin, there is also a negative side of the coin. And really, you get to flip the coin. You get to flip the coin. So as we're wrapping up this quick little show, I've got to go get my little kids to jump in a bath, which is an absolute nightmare for under 3-year-olds. That's part of the fun. And for parents that are seeing this and listening to this, trying to create those positive loops with them. Kids can be a nightmare to bath and to get to bed and to feed as well. But if we create positive associations with the bath and eating good quality foods as well, they will increase the likelihood that they do it, not just for the time being right now, where they're still at home and stuff, but as they get older. Because if that's all they've ever known, they have a much greater likelihood of continuing those behaviors. And then that filters into your grandkids and great grandkids and so on and so forth. And really, it only takes one person. It only takes one person in a generation to be able to really give a shit about their overall health, well being, their wealth, their impact on the world, to positively have a knock on effect to the rest of their family. Hope you enjoyed this live stream, everyone. Go enjoy the rest of the weekend.